One of the biggest mysteries in One Piece right now is Imu's powers. How is she able to share her powers with those around her? How is she able to make the Gorosei immortal beings with such similar abilities? After watching this video, I guarantee you'll be left speechless, because the answer to this mystery might lie in this little girl. Who remembers Miss Golden Week? Do you remember what she was capable of doing? This little girl might be the answer we've been looking for, to unravel the mystery behind Imu's powers, and the key to how Luffy will be able to defeat her. Stick with me until the end, because today's video is insane. At the climax of the Egghead arc, we got the chance to see the Gorosei in action for the first time ever. Each of them displayed a unique transformation, different from the others, a mix of epic and bizarre. However, we quickly noticed that all five shared certain abilities in common. They all showed a kind of murder-death immortality when they were slashed, pierced, and torn apart dozens of times, yet always came back to life with no visible damage. They also demonstrated a natural death immortality, as we saw Gorosei Saturn with exactly the same appearance we've always known him to have, during an event that happened 200 years ago. This suggests that, despite their elderly appearance, and the many scars most of the Gorosei share, those could have come from before they acquired such powers, or from someone who knew exactly how to bypass that immortality. Yes, we're talking about Joy Boy. It's possible that the Gorosei were already old when they received this so-called immortality from Imu, but were still wounded by something only Joy Boy possessed. So hold on to that information. We'll come back to it in a moment. In addition to immortality, the Gorosei also appear to share other common traits, such as the fact that all their powers seem to be based on yokai from Japanese mythology, or at least from Eastern mythology in general. They've also demonstrated the ability to summon a magical circle to teleport, although in this case, it's more of a deduction than a confirmed fact, since the one who summoned the others to Egghead was Saturn himself. We can reasonably assume they all possess the same ability, especially considering the Holy Knights also use it. Moreover, they've all shown the ability to communicate telepathically with one another. In other words, these are powers that allow them to interact, directly teleporting each other, speaking through thoughts, which further reinforces this sense of unity, as if all their powers are simply parts of a larger whole. So where does this whole come from? At the end of the Egghead arc, we saw Imu demonstrate the ability to extract and revoke Saturn's immortality, and apparently all of his powers resulting in his death. Basically, since Saturn was shown to have been alive for at least 200 years, once his immortality was revoked, the natural effects of his age instantly caught up with him, reducing him to nothing but a skeleton. This surreal moment only reinforced the conclusion that the Gorosei's powers were granted by Imu. Later, in Elbaf, this idea gained even more traction when we were introduced to the Holy Knights. Through them, we learned that only those who bear a certain mark can pass through the abyss, that is, be teleported like the Gorosei and the Holy Knights themselves. From this, we can deduce that, like the Holy Knights, each member of the Gorosei must also have this same mark on their bodies, a mark that likely symbolizes the powers of Imu. But the real question is, how was Imu able to do this? How could Imu share at least part of her powers just by embedding a mark into the bodies of others? And this is where we need to remember a certain character, Miss Golden Week. You remember her, right? Of course everyone does. But do you remember exactly how that little girl's powers worked? When I reread that part of the manga, I was stunned, and I rushed here to share this theory with you, because honestly, it completely convinced me. Well, Miss Golden Week was part of Baroque Works, and worked as Mr. Three's partner. She appeared during the Little Garden arc, and gave the crew a lot of trouble. Even though she was just a 16-year-old girl, she even had a bounty of 29 million berries, which might seem like nothing nowadays, but at the time, it was practically the same as Luffy's own bounty of 30 million berries back then. But let's talk about what really matters here, her powers. Miss Golden Week had an ability called Color Trap. She carried a paintbrush and a color palette that she used to hypnotize her victims. She would paint a symbol on their body that would put them in a hypnotic state and force them to do whatever she wanted. In fact, to be even more precise, each color on her palette triggered a different effect on the victim. For example, the black symbol, called the Black of Betrayal, made the target betray their friends, doing the exact opposite of what they were told. She even used this ability on Luffy during that arc. Then there was the yellow symbol, the Yellow of Laughter, which caused uncontrollable laughter, also used on Luffy. Look at that, huh? Oda already leaving a hidden clue for us back then. Next, the red symbol, known as the Red of Rage, made the target direct all their attacks toward a painted mark. This basically made Luffy act like a bull, charging at the red mark just because it was, well, red, just like in bullfighting. Then we had the blue symbol, called the Blue of Sorrow, which made the target sad. This one wasn't shown on its own, but was combined with the yellow symbol, already on Luffy's back, to create the green symbol. The green symbol, a mix of yellow and blue, called the Green of Calm, made the target sit down and have a picnic with Miss Golden Week. Who remembers Luffy sitting there calmly sipping tea with her in the anime, right? I bet a lot of you remember that scene. Another combination was green and yellow, called the green-yellow of friendship, which made the target become friends with Miss Golden Week and help her complete a task. And finally, beyond all those mixes, Miss Golden Week had her most powerful ability, a combination of all the colors. When I reread that part, guys, I had to admit, Oda was a genius with this one. This color combination is called the rainbow of colors, and it makes the target fulfill their dreams. Yes, the girl literally has the freaking power to make people's dreams come true. Like what? Why didn't she use that on Luffy, guys? She should have used it on Luffy, so we could at least find out what his second dream is. In practice, we see this power transform Miss Merry Christmas into a princess, Miss Golden Week herself into a true artist, and Miss Doublefinger into a cafe waitress, the same kind she later becomes in the series. It also turned Miss Valentine into a cake baker, Mr. 5 into a firefighter, Mr. 4 into a pizza delivery guy, and even Lasso, that gun dog, into a tank. And finally, it even transformed Mr. 1 into a superhero that was his dream, and Crocodile into the Pirate King. Yep, that one page that a lot of people probably remember, with Crocodile dressed like a classic Pirate King, completely out of context and confusing everyone that was it. Now, I wanted to list all these examples to make it clear that this ability doesn't literally turn someone into what they desire in real life, but rather, it changes their outfit, right? It creates a fantasy, materializes that fantasy at least as far as we know. Who knows, maybe it even affects their personality a bit, or gives them an extra push to pursue their dreams. Anyway, to add two more interesting points. First, the concept behind Color Trap, Miss Golden Week's ability, seems to be inspired by the idea of color psychology, which suggests that specific colors can affect and influence human behavior. And second, the symbol that Miss Golden Week paints on people to activate her ability is always the same. The symbol consists of the initials CT, which stands for Color Trap or Color Strap in the original, written in such a highly stylized way that it's barely even readable. Just a fun little detail for you guys, right? But what very few people probably remember, and here comes the most important point of all, is that Miss Golden Week's power does not come from a devil fruit. That's right, Miss Golden Week does not have a devil fruit. I'm not saying she has one and we just don't know its name. I mean, she literally has no devil fruit power at all. So then, if her hypnosis ability doesn't come from a devil fruit, where does it come from? Well, one possible answer, and maybe even an easy way out that Oda could take, would be Haki. As we know, Haki is a form of energy that manifests from a person's willpower. More specifically, Conqueror's Haki grants its user the ability to unleash their own will to dominate the will of others. Yeah, you're already starting to see where I'm going with this. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Miss Golden Week is just another case of a child with an absurd level of power in the world of One Piece. As you all know, that's a common element in the series, children who are born with incredible abilities, but aren't even stronger, simply because they're still just kids. Remember Aiza from Skypiea? She had a mantra, observation Haki, so strong that its range was nearly equal to, or possibly even greater than Enel's. And keep in mind, Enel only had such a huge range because of his lightning fruit. Who remembers, for example, Otama in Wano, who could control any and all animals that ate her kibidango for weeks on end? Who remembers Sugar in Dressrosa, who could turn anyone into a toy with just a touch, making the entire world forget that person even existed? Who remembers Shirahoshi herself, who was born as one of the 3 ancient weapons, a true weapon of mass destruction? The examples are endless, and we could even mention Jewelry Bonnie in this story. After all, she's a child who has the ability to transform into an adult version of herself, Mika. So I wouldn't be surprised if Miss Golden Week is one of these anomalies, someone born with Haki, a force of will that manifests through her paintings. Actually guys, there's a detail I just remembered while recording this video. Haki has 3 types, each named after a color. We have the color of armament, the color of observation, and the color of the conqueror, the latter literally being called Shoku. So when we say Hao Shoku, Buso Shoku, and Kenbun Shoku, that Shoku literally translates to colors. So just think about that for a second. In Miss Golden Week's case, she's literally using colors to exert her willpower over other people. That's crazy! So I honestly wouldn't doubt that this little girl's power is a manifestation of Conqueror's Haki on a level beyond anything we've seen, a level where the user can literally control the will of others. And if that's the case, then maybe this same idea could apply to Imu's powers. Just like Miss Golden Week places a mark on her victims to gain full control over their actions and will, Imu also marks the bodies of those she shares her powers with. And I wouldn't be surprised if Imu can also literally control the bodies of those marked by her, just like Miss Golden Week. And if that's the case, how could one possibly fight against a power like that? The answer might be simpler than we think. If we're talking about Haki, then the solution would be an even stronger Haki, a willpower that's even more powerful. Maybe that's how Joy Boy was able to wound the Gorosei during the Void Century, and maybe that's exactly what Luffy will need in order to defeat the King of the World. This concept becomes even more intriguing when we remember that Luffy is the ultimate symbol of freedom. He doesn't want to control anyone's will, so if such a power does exist, it would go directly against Luffy's own ideals. But maybe even then he'll be forced to use it in order to overcome Imu's overwhelming willpower. So, did you stick around until the end and enjoy the video? Guys, leave your feedback in the comments and let me know what you thought of this theory and the whole idea, because your comment is super important for the video's engagement and helps it reach even more people. Also, don't forget to drop a like and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And now you can check out the latest One Piece videos that just dropped on the channel by clicking on the ones that are about to pop up on the screen. Cool? I'll see you next time. Goodbye.